What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn has this to say about Jamal Charlo. He said Jamal Charlo is a fake champion. I repeat, a fake champion. And Saul Canelo Alvarez is still the real WBC middleweight champion. The WBC belt that Jermall was given was a gifted title, and he shouldn't feel good about himself, according to Eddie Hearn. And he is not a real champion. And what do I say about that? How do I counterpunch that? Well, it makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of truth to that. What Eddie is saying. Jamal Charlo being the WBC champion now, without fighting anyone to get the WBC, you haven't done anything to warrant getting the WBC. The WBC itself hasn't really enforced their own rules on a mandatory status on stripping Canelo. It would be different if they stripped Canelo like they were, or I don't even know if we're going to do that. So let's stop. Okay, I already addressed that. I don't even know if they were going to strip Canelo. Canelo just gave that belt up to avoid anyone really putting the eyes on the WBC, right? To see what they were going to do, to see if they're going to enforce their own rules. So I think that was one of the reasons he gave up the WBC belt to Gennady Golovkin when he once upon a time had it, which he got it from Miguel Cotto. In this situation, they pretty much made a belt for Canelo and gave the belt that Canelo had to Jermall. I mean, really, it cheapens the idea, the prestige that the WBC is supposed to have of the belt. Like Eddie said, I agree with about 90% of what he said. He said that Jermall can't feel good about it. But here's the problem. He does. Or that's what he's letting people think. He feels good about this. You see Jermall, he's happy. He fought in his hometown. He was parading hell. You thought he was Andy Ruiz. The way he was parading around in Houston, because he got the WBC belt and went 12 rounds with Mr. Adams. So, he actually gave his props to Canelo. The question is, why wasn't Jermall mad about that? You see what I'm saying? Why wasn't he mad about the decision? Like, okay, I didn't fight anyone for that. If this guy had prestige, let's just say that, if he really gave a damn about his career, he should be upset. He should be upset because he never got the opportunity to show how good he was. And at this point, if he's able to just receive a belt, right, without fighting anyone, that shows you how much he cares about the belt or his legacy. You know what I'm saying? It's just he's comfortable fighting guys that nobody gives a shit about, apparently, because there's no resistance. I think that Dillian White would have been more pissed if they gave him the belt without him fighting for it. But like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? How are you going to give me a belt and then I didn't even fight for this motherfucker? So why would you even give this to me? I don't want it. I want to earn it. And that's the problem. Jermall has no problem just receiving a belt instead of earning the belt. You get belts by fighting people in the ring. At least let it at least been an elimination. An eliminator. Like, okay, there's Danny Jacobs, there's Jamal Charlo. These guys could have fought for that. And then if he would have beat Danny Jacobs, which is a top tier fighter, an ex-champion himself, then he would have warranted that particular belt, that title. So, my question is, why isn't he? That's the question. Like, okay, if this guy doesn't see that he did nothing wrong, which he kind of didn't, you know what I mean? But what is Jermall going to do at the end of the day? I just find it strange that there's no prestige, there's no integrity from wanting to fight no one. Because at that point, you don't care what other people think of you, because you didn't have to fight anyone. The question is, who will you fight? I guess you'll continue fighting nobodies because you got what you say you wanted. You got a title. You got a title at 160 without fighting anyone. How would that affect your legacy in the next 5 years? People look at you and they're like, okay, did you fight Canelo? Did you fight Jacobs? Did you fight Andrade? Did you fight... Fuck, who did you fight? You know, man. You know? Damn, can we get Lemieux? I don't even think Lemieux's at 160 no more. I think he couldn't even make the weight no more. So, I mean, I don't even know what to really say about that. But I will say this about Eddie Hearn. Of course, Eddie Hearn would say that about Jamal Charlo, because Eddie Hearn and the WBC are not on good terms right now because of the things that the WBC, the things that they have been doing, have been really unacceptable. Okay, so I think that Eddie is attacking the WBC because he has the right to and all the room to, because of what the WBC has actually done. And I think that's the angle. I think it's not really Jamal that he's targeting. I think he's targeting the WBC. So before people get all bent, I think Eddie Hearn is just saying this is another poor action and poor decision that shows the corruption of the WBC. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what his goal was. I think that's what he was thinking of, more or less. Jermall. Jermall is just a pawn at this point. Canelo doesn't need the WBC because he has other sanctioned bodies and other obligations. Jermall doesn't. He's just a PBC fighter that fights on he's another Al Heyman guy that does what people tell him to do. That's why he can't be really mad at the end of the day, because he knows he does not control his own career, just like a lot of those guys don't. The only guy that I know that deals with Al Heyman, and then ironically he's with Matchroom, is Danny Jacobs. And what did Danny Jacobs earn his last payday? $10 million. You see what I'm saying? Those are the type of moves you want. Right? And $10 million on the zone, ain't that like about what Deontay Wilder got for his pay-per-view? You see what I'm saying? And the funny thing about it is, it's like, did he really get that amount of money? We don't really know. Who knows? But that's the only guy I know that deals with Al Heyman and then has a promoter as Eddie, because he's in hybrid. You know, I would really like to pick his brain one day to ask, how does that work, having Al Heyman as an advisor and Eddie Hearn as a promoter? But I think Eddie Hearn's main objective, you know, in this whole story is to really exploit and expose the WBC. So, you know, I wouldn't really... He's just using that as an example. But it is a good question. It does, you know, it does make you think, like, Jamal Charlo... how real of a champion is he if he never had to fight anyone? So, yeah, I have to agree. You know, I have nothing personal against Jamal Charlo, but at some point, you got to realize, like, what's about legacy versus about money. You know, then if you get enough money, you're going to start looking like, okay, am I a good fighter, or am I just taking bullshit fights just to get paid? See what I'm saying? So, anyway... You guys tell me what you think about Eddie Hearn's statements, comments. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunching. Peace.